Morning fellas, Reggie here. This just popped into my head and I was like, oh, that's a very good question. So I want you guys to take a little travel back in time for those of you who own bikes. We're going to talk about what bike you wanted, what bike you started with, and what bike you're currently riding. Let's go ahead and get started. Ready with 2 G's! Alright, so the reason I present it like that is when I wanted to get into biking, there was not necessarily a bike I wanted, but a type of bike I wanted. I wanted a sports bike. I ended up with a cruiser. Currently, I ride a cruiser. And I thought about this for a while, and I was like, I wonder if there are other people with bikes who were expecting or thought this is the kind of bike I wanted, whether they got that bike they wanted or not, or they started on something else, they ended up with that bike, or they just ended up on something completely different due to finances or whatever. You know, maybe they got the bike they wanted and they're like, oh, this is not for me. So the reason I asked, when I first started doing research, I wanted a sports bike. Then I read about the dangers of sports bikes, you know, as a beginner bike, and I got turned away from it. And I started looking at the Ninja 500 and the Ninja 250 as starter bikes. Suffice to say, my significant spousal other did not approve of those bikes, only because she wanted to ride with me, and she was trying to get me to get a bigger cruiser, but I refused and held out. So I decided that I would best of both worlds, get a touring bike. So I went ahead and purchased a touring bike. I went ahead because she wanted a cruiser, it was more comfortable. I went ahead and started looking at cruisers, and I had looked at like 3 or 4 different cruisers, and I settled on wanting two. And I've said this before, which was the Suzuki S40 and the Honda Shadow. Ended up on a Honda Shadow. I'm glad I did. Love that bike to death. If I could own another one, I would. I'd ride that thing every day. That bike was awesome. It was a 600. When it came time to upgrade, I obviously ended up with this bike, and I've been in cruiser land ever since. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Now after now that I've had this bike for a while, I've started thinking about, you know, it's funny how where I started and where I ended up. And the bikes that I've kind of looked at, like, oh, you know, that'd be kind of cool to own as a second bike and whatnot. But like I said, for me, it was starting with starting on looking for a sport bike, because I'm a dude, I'm young, and I want a freaking sport bike, and ending up on a cruiser. So let me know what kind of bikes you guys wanted to start on, what bike you really wanted, what bike you ended up with, and what you're riding now. I think it'd be a very interesting story to hear from you guys what it is, you know, you guys really wanted, or what you started on, especially if you're vlogging. You didn't start vlogging on your first bike, which I wish I did, but I didn't. Yeah, so that's all I got. I will catch you guys on the next video. I look forward to your comments. I'm giving you Reggie's 1G, 2G's up.